Hi, and welcome back once again to our Community Leadership Training course. This week's lesson is called Question and Answer Situations, delivering the perfect answer every time. This topic is especially interesting because, as many of you know, how to handle yourself in a question and answer situation, whether this takes place in a public meeting or even out in the street talking with members of your community, is the skill that you may use the most as a community leader. So some people might say, yeah, I could use a little public speaking training and then maybe go and read a book on how to deliver a speech or attend a Toastmasters meeting. But for those of us who have been in a public meeting or been in a panel discussion, we recognize that sometimes it's your ability to think on your feet and handle yourself under fire in a question and answer situation. That's the skill that's the most valuable. Now I want to talk to you about something that a lot of people neglect: listening. Listening is a funny thing, and I'll tell you why. If you listen to somebody, not just hear them, but I mean really listen to them, it has a profound impact on how they perceive you. In fact, studies have shown that people that are good listeners are thought to be more interesting than people who are not good listeners. Okay, so you might be wondering, what does all this have to do with getting elected, or you being appointed to a leadership position, or even speaking confidently in public? I want to introduce you to a technique that I call identifying the red flag. Identifying the red flag is an active listening technique that goes one step beyond regular listening because it lays the foundation for an interactive communication experience. Now stick with me here, because if you can really implement this stuff, the people around you are going to love it. They are going to in turn want to hear everything you have to say and really want to follow you. So let me tell you how identifying the red flag works. You know how when you're talking to somebody and no matter how many ways you explain something, they just don't get your point? So no matter how many ways you phrase something, they just can't get to the central issue of what you're talking about. Maybe you're explaining something to a significant other and they just don't get it. So you try again and they still don't get it. You think that they're listening, but they just can't identify what you're getting at. And it makes you feel misunderstood and it makes them feel frustrated, right? Well, the main reason for this is not that they weren't listening, but that they were completely unaware of the core issue or red flag behind the conversation. So for example, your significant other may not be talking about the fact that you can't go out to the movies with them or go out to dinner with them. What they are really talking about is spending time together. Spending time together is the red flag that was not mentioned explicitly. It was lying right below the surface, but it was the core issue of the discussion. Can you see how if you're not able to recognize this underlying point or core issue, that you would miss the boat entirely? On the flip side of this, if you are able to identify the red flag or core issue, this would make you feel great. It would make the person that you're talking with feel great, and it would allow the whole conversation to flow more smoothly. Am I right? Okay, but here's the kicker. The core issue or red flag is always around, but it's usually hidden beneath the surface of the conversation, and it's rarely mentioned explicitly. Okay, so this is where it gets good. If you can identify a person's red flag issue in a question and answer type of situation, you will develop an instant connection with them, like they are being heard. So if you are able to identify this core issue under the surface, the conversational logjam will be broken. And not only that, but you'll now have direct control over the core issue of the conversation. This technique will work in all types of situations: at public meetings, panel discussions, on the street in regular conversation, anywhere where you as a public leader find yourself needing to communicate in a Q&A type of format. Alright, you might be wondering, what are some of the most common red flags for community leaders? Again, these are subsurface issues that come up over and over again, but are usually cloaked in disguise by the questioner. Some of the common red flag issues in community meetings are cost, like the cost of a project, timetables, how long something will take, and health. Is there something causing health problems in the community? Let me tell you one more thing, and this is the one thing that you need to remember. When somebody is asking you a question, no matter what the situation, try your best to be actively listening for the red flag, and then once you identify it, include it in your answer back to them. So if somebody is complaining about the town's water quality, for example, try using the word health when responding. They are not really talking about water quality, right? Water quality means nothing in and of itself. Health is the larger issue. So health is the way you should be spinning the question back to them. So do you see what's going on here? You are identifying the core issue for them. And I'll tell you what, you are going to be shocked at the response you'll get. Many of the time in a discussion, when you identify a person's red flag, they will literally nod their head back at you in this sort of mesmerized obedience. This is not a joke. They will actually nod their head once you identify their core issue. So we've identified that there is a red flag or core issue behind every question. Your goal, your mission is to identify it and then repeat it back to the person somewhere in your response. If you don't see their head nod, you're probably not getting it right, so keep trying. This is actually a serious point here. If you don't literally see the person's head nod, you have not identified their core issue, and they are not going to listen to your response. All right, well, I have a little exercise for you this week. This is actually a really fun one, and I think you'll like it. So the next time you're in a meeting or watching CNN or even out in public, and you witness an intense question and answer type of interaction, I want you to actively listen for the other person's core issue, for their red flag. Once you've identified the person's core issue, you're going to have an aha moment. You're going to see the whole conversation revolves around the red flag, not around the question itself. After you start practicing this technique and getting better at listening for the core issue, you're going to really start to see some major results in your performance in a question and answer situation. Over time, you'll realize it's when you can master the art of identifying the red flag that you're really in control of the direction of the Q&A interaction, or really any discussion for that matter. It will literally affect the way that you can converse. This is the level that the truly effective leaders operate on. This is the stuff that will get you elected, appointed to leadership positions, and really enable you to clearly communicate with all of your constituents all the time. All right, well, that's all we have for this week. Thanks for tuning in and checking out this lesson called Question and Answer Situations, delivering the perfect answer every time. I hope you learned something. Next week, we'll jump into an interesting topic for most of you. It's called How to Manage the Media, delivering the right responses in TV and newspaper interviews. Also, at the end of this video, there will be a link to a really incredible learning opportunity here in Vermont. So click on that link and check it out. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.